And we're live. So, Trump, Supreme Court rules on nationwide injunctions against Trump birthright citizenship order. Let's see what's happening. Birthright citizenship in question?
This is an ABC News special report.
Good morning, I'm Wade Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air because the Supreme Court has just released a potential landmark decision impacting the future of birthright citizenship in the U.S. The justices were asked to roll back nation.
First of all, I was just thinking, why do we have birthright citizenship? Like, what's the point? And so I looked up, Kim Ark Wong, a decision from 1970 or in the 70s to 80s, and about basically this Chinese guy who was born here, and at 21, he always said that he was a U.S. citizen, but his parents weren't, and they went back and they had a permanent residence and did business here, and so he got to stay, and that was the Supreme Court order that I read, but this is totally different, and so I'm so confused, and what I kind of ended up on was the Constitution does say both born and naturalized, and where is the question in that, but maybe what does naturalized mean? Look it up on ChatGPT in a minute.
Nationwide injunctions against the president's attempt to redefine the 14th Amendment, which states that anyone born in the U.S. is automatically a U.S. citizen, regardless of their parents' citizenship status. It's been in place for more than 150 years. But now, in a 6-3 split, the conservative majority ruled that President Trump can move forward with implementing his birthright citizenship change, except for those who brought the case, the 22 states and a group of pregnant immigrant women who brought that case. So it's
so the rest of the nation is going to go with it, and there's these few places that are not. One of them, I believe, is Oregon. So that's what Pam Bondi was talking about in their press release.
Not directly getting at the 14th Amendment here, but this will have a nationwide impact. Let's go ahead and bring in our Devin Dwyer, ABC's senior Washington reporter, who's been following the Supreme Court on this. Devin, it's not as straightforward as I think a lot of people were perhaps expecting or hoping to hear.
What separates great thinkers?
So break down what this actually means.
Well, this was a big surprise, Whit, and this is coming from the youngest conservative justice on the Supreme Court, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, 6-3, as you said, in a big win for Donald Trump, saying he can move forward with that executive order that he issued on day one, changing the definition of citizenship in this country. Practically speaking, it means the president can, in the next 30 days, begin to develop guidelines for how he would implement that. It does not mean, however, Whit, that this executive order is free from future legal challenge. Legal cases in 3 different districts will continue on the merits. The Supreme Court, in oral argument in this matter, did signal that it was skeptical that it could stand up to legal muster. But at this point, the court is really weighing in on the ability of individual judges in districts around the country to block a president's action nationwide. And what Justice Barrett said today is that an individual federal court judge does not have that authority to broadly block a president. The judge.
Yeah, it would, for the rest of the states that voted for that, that would be unfair. It would be the minority ruling the majority, and the rest of the nation didn't elect those judges.
He or she can block an individual while a case is being litigated, and in this case that was upheld. So, this order as it's implemented cannot apply to those 22 states. It's going to be messy. It cannot apply to those particular pregnant women that are challenging this. But elsewhere in the country, and at the very least in the planning stages, the president can move forward, and that is a significant and surprising win for him.
It sure is. Devin Dwyer, thank you. Please stand by for a moment, because I think it's worth going back to the language here in the 14th Amendment, again, ratified after the Civil War, which states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Of course, the Trump administration trying to make changes to that. That's what triggered these series of lawsuits and then ended back at the Supreme Court.
Don't they have to have 2/3 of a majority? They could. We'll see.
Let's bring in our ABC News legal contributor, Sarah Isgur, because Sarah, many are going to be asking now, where does the process go from here and get?
This sounds truly historic. Something that hasn't changed in like 150 years.
Getting back to the root of that question in the 14th Amendment.
Right. This was only about whether the district judge could enjoin the enforcement of that nationwide. What we'll now see is the actual question of what the 14th Amendment means, whether a president acting alone without Congress, without an amendment to the Constitution, can change our understanding of how we've implemented that for the last 150 years. That question will go back to the Supreme Court.
A lot of people are not going to like that, especially the people that I've been arguing with on here that are saying there is no wiggle room in the Constitution. Well, then why do we have to have a Supreme Court to interpret it?
Amy Coney Barrett, in her majority opinion, making clear this decision has nothing to do with the merits of that legal question. The Supreme Court can prevent enforcement of that executive order nationwide. I expect we'll hear more about the merits of that question in the fall. As you read it, the real legal question is on what subject to the jurisdiction thereof means. Is someone who is in the country unlawfully subject to the laws of our country, like a diplomat would not be subject to the law?
This is the question.
At the time of the 14th Amendment, someone who belonged on tribal lands was not subject to.
Or an enemy combatant that's naturalized in the environment in the United States.
Our laws. So that's the question that the justices will now have to look at in the fall.
Sarah, thank you. I want to go back to Devin Dwyer. Devin, we're getting more on the dissent. Of course, again, as we pointed out, this was a 6-3 majority decision. So what are we hearing from the liberal justices on the court?
This one did break along ideological lines, Whit, and Justice Sonia Sotomayor, we are told, is taking the rare step of reading her dissent aloud in the chamber behind me right now. And she has said in her written opinion that this is a gross mistake by the Supreme Court. In her words, she warns that no right is safe now in this country. She had hypothesized, Whit, that if a president in the future, say, a Democratic president, decided to issue an order seizing everyone's guns in this country, in her view, that would be lawful until it was struck down by the Supreme Court, that an injunction by a federal judge would not have effect. So a pretty striking statement by the senior liberal. She says that this is really going to upset the apple cart in a whole bunch of cases right now around the country. And we should point out, Whit, that the implications of this decision are going to be quite significant and take some time to figure out. The court today, in saying that individual judges cannot block a president's policy nationwide, will apply to lots of other cases involving Donald Trump, from some of his immigration policies to some of those freezes on federal funding to mass layoffs at federal agencies.
See, the thing is that a lot of people are scared of is that all these changes that that we're going through right now are that they're tyrannical, and that Trump is taking over and he's a fascist and he's changing the Constitution and he's arresting judges and all this sort of stuff. But the thing is about this, and it's much like the War for Independence, where they went about everything in a legal fashion. So they're taking these to the courts. They're fighting this in court, and they're winning. So it's really, really cool to see that they're able to do this lawfully. And that's what we should be paying attention to, is this lawful?
Judges have blocked those things on a universal basis, and some of those orders may now need to be rolled back or eliminated with.
And as you pointed out, implementing all of this will be really complicated in the coming days. I do want to go to our chief political correspondent, Rachel Scott, who's joining us now from the White House. And Rachel, just for perspective, from the White House here, I want to go to this quote from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. This was back in February when she was explaining this. She said the administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional. So that's really at the heart of all of this.
Yeah, so the White House is in strong opposition that it's unconstitutional. They're taking a strong stance on this and really going for it.
Is at the heart of all of this, and this is something that the president campaigned on. It was once considered this sort of fringe theory years ago. It's something that President Donald Trump campaigned on and that the Republican Party has embraced. We have not heard directly yet from the administration or from the president himself on this, but I could tell you I could imagine they're going to be very satisfied by what they are hearing in this news from the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
because for them, this is, of course, much broader than just this issue.
Winning.
of birthright citizenship. This administration and the president's top officials have long argued that these district court judges have too much power, that they should not be allowed to block things that the president campaigned on, that they believe the American people elected him to do and to carry out.
That's right. He won the popular vote as well as the whatever that the electoral college. So yeah, people voted for this, and just it's like 5 or 4 different states doing the majority of these lawsuits. They shouldn't be allowed to control the rest of the nation, and it's starting to show. They're winning all these cases, so it appears.
And birthright citizenship is one of those things. But also, as Devin did mention there are a series of other things that have been challenged and blocked by some of these lower court judges when it comes to the president's other immigration policies, even some of these freezes that we have seen within the federal government. And so the question now, and what this administration will be looking at, is how broad can this go potentially? Does that mean that some of those other issues will now have to be rolled back? But when we're talking about on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, we know that is something that, of course, will continue to come up and could very well find itself in front of the Supreme Court again. And while
it's in the Constitution, right? They're going for the heart of the Constitution. If they can make a change to that, or at least expound upon, and that's what they do at the Supreme Court. They're interpreting the Constitution, and they're trying to figure out the original intent and what should be the right thing to do out of the historical understanding and whatever else criteria that they go over.
Administration feels firm about this, as you just read from the press secretary right there. They do feel good about their legal standing on the issue of the constitutionality of birthright citizenship. You did hear from some of the conservative justices on the bench during these oral arguments, including Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was skeptical of just how exactly that could go into effect, raising some concerns about it. But again, this was not necessarily on the merits of that issue, at least for now, Whit.
Yeah, that's the thing. The long-term path, still a lot of questions and unknown. Rachel Scott for us, thank you. I want to bring in ABC's Maria Villarreal joining us now from Dallas. Maria, I know you've been speaking with immigration attorneys and advocates. This is going to leave a lot of families in limbo.
You know, Whit, at this point, immigration attorneys are saying, listen, this feels like we are splitting the baby. And obviously, we're talking about the merits of, universal injunctions, not necessarily the merits of the case when it comes to birthright citizenship. Being said, most people out there don't really understand the difference between these two. And so this could create a lot of fear in immigrant communities. And that's what they're most concerned about, is the ripple effect, the potential here. Because no doubt the administration is going to see this as a win for them. It's going to push them to move forward, not just on immigration, but other big issues as well. And really, try to get to the community and saying, listen, this is a win for us and a loss for you guys. So you might as well just go ahead and fall in line. Nonprofit organizations right now are trying to get the word out, trying to educate people in these immigrant communities.
There's going to be a lot of people that are upset by this for sure. I mean, I already know a lot of people that are upset by this. And the cities in Texas, at least, are very blue, but the rest of the rest of the state is not. And thank God that, we're a red state.
That this is not an absolute loss for them, especially when it has to do with birthright citizenship. But their big concern is if communities feel like this is a loss, we might see more protesting. We might see more issues within these communities because It is creating fear.
Maria Villarreal for us and our entire team, thank you once again.
It's creating fear. Oh, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So maybe we should fear the law, fear the lawgiver, fear the person that put the lawgiver in place, fear the lawgiver of the universe, fear of God. Well, it's really interesting. I can't wait to see what happens. We're going to be covering it, I think, because I've gotten really deep into it with my comment section. So let's learn together, okay? I'm not omniscient, so I don't know everything. I'm trying to figure it out as I go. But my position is why we should follow the law is because God has ordained and set the civil magistrate. And we voted these things in, and we need to be very careful about what we're still doing. But yeah, we should definitely divinely respect the decision of the leadership, because that has been placed there by God. But at the same time, we must not allow them to break covenant with us and covenant with the law and terrorizing or putting or creating tyranny over the people. So we need to pay attention of the legality of all this. And it sounds good to me, honestly. They're doing everything through the court system. They started doing things, and now that they're being questioned in court. So to me, it's like it's all going about the right way. They have legal precedent why they're doing this. Federal law states that they can be going in the way that they're going into different states, and different states are working with them, and some states aren't, and those are the ones that are bringing forth the lawsuits. But I think the next thing is to read Justice Amy Coney Barrett's not dissension, but their decision on it. So very curious to see that. And I'm going to stop the video here and then make a new video of me reading over the decision. So thank you very much for watching. Tune in for the next episode that comes out. And may the Lord bless you and keep you.